Right, I'm here in County Kerry with Johnny O'Hanlon.
Yeah.
Johnny, it's been we know each other a good few years. We'd often be chatting.
Yeah.
And I suppose I was kind of looking forward to coming on farm.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me first
No
of all.
problem at all, yeah.
Can you tell people, I suppose, I've started introducing you, but who you are and where we are?
So yeah, Johnny O'Hanlon, we're on Golden Hill Farm, which is the home of Rahela Holsteins in North Kerry. We've been here for 6 generations now, so it's a reasonably established farm at this stage. We're milking about 120 North American and Canadian Holsteins all year round. This year we're 50% autumn calving, 50% spring calving. With the last 4 or 5 years, we've been 100% AI. I'm using 100%, as I say, either American or Canadian sex semen, and then Angus semen to mop up on that. So I suppose last year, just as in the shed as well, we built this last year. Interesting to note maybe is the polycarbonate roof with zinc in it. I just think it's a nice, bright, light, airy space for calves to be in. Maybe one of the other interesting things in the shed then as well is all of these calves, it's typically 14, 15, 16 weeks on milk before they're weaned. They are obviously getting a concentrate then as well with that, and they are fed winter barley straw as their forage.
You've given a good bit of information there.
Yeah,
but one thing is interesting, Johnny, about you is Rulebook is here, right? And you have your own sort of, I think what I found fascinating is you're doing a lot of really interesting things. Like we walked into the shed, I love the roof. That's an obvious thing. But the first thing you said to me, we were talking about drainage. The drainage is going in the opposite
direction. So I suppose, look, part of it was a health and safety thing. Part of it was just, a pet peeve of mine that if you walk into a shed, the drainage channel is always under the gate. So you're either entering or leaving the gate, feeding the animals. You put your ankle into the drainage channel. It's something that, and we need drainage for the calves, but my mind, it doesn't necessarily have to be there. So we've put it at the back wall of the shed instead. So all of the pin drains to the rear of the shed.
And it's working well for you.
Yeah, so far.
So what I find interesting about calves is we talk about milk feeding. You're feeding the milk, as you said, for longer. You've a big cow. You need to work hard on that calf from day one to get to that.
Yeah, so I suppose, look, typically our cow is anywhere to 850 kgs live weight as a mature animal, which would be, several hundred kilos heavier than maybe the typical Irish cow. But the calf that's born on farm, relative to a standard Irish calf, is not going to be hugely,
different,
maybe 10 or 15% different, but they have a whole lot of extra growing to do to get to their mature adult weight versus the other animals. So from that point of view, you basically, as you said, it's not so much tear up the rule book, but you have to write your own set of stuff for that again, just to, you know where you want to be, you know where you're starting from, you draw a line between the two, and it's easy to see what you need to do to get there.
What I've always found from talking to you, and anyone who knows you will know that you're a sharp. You're a sharp cookie, right? There's no point. The detail and understanding, of biology, physiology, you're thinking about things all the time. You're able to write your own rule book because you think about it and you read wildly. But I suppose one of the things that I found as well interesting is just that I suppose the level of detail that goes into the planning of the calf's diet, nutrition-wise. And what you said something really interesting to me today, right? First time I ever heard it. Winter barley straw being fed exclusively. Because it had minimum fungicides.
Well, I suppose less fungicides in general and a longer period from the last fungicide to when the animal is actually eating it versus a spring straw.
And why, again, I would understand why we would be trying to reduce fungicides, but you're actually thinking about the rumen microflora, I think, there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just, for us, it's a healthier product for the calf. And if it's healthier, then why not? Both of them are there, they're freely available. You can have either one, there's no problem. So, if in my mind one is better than the other,
And I suppose as an early adopter, which you clearly are, right, is you've been using the Precision Microbes here.
Yeah, so
what's your opinions on that?
Yeah, I suppose we started using those. It would have been September. It'd be coming on 3 years this September, pretty much when the product came out first. Came across it on Twitter probably or whatever, and our local vets were stocking it. So said we'd get it in and try it. Again, it leans to my kind of line of thinking that, animals are what they eat, and if you can put something healthier or something to weigh the balance of good bacteria versus bad bacteria into the animal, so much the better. It's a no-brainer from that point of view.
And you've been happy with it, feeding it out?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've used it consistently now for the last 2.5 years, and it'll be back in again now. We start calving in September in a month's time, pretty much, and it'll be back in again in the diet then again that way.
Your balance that you look at, the immunity, the health, the nutrition piece, it follows right through to the cows, to everything.
Yeah.
What, like, are you just, is attention to detail one of your skills? Is that what you see?
Maybe so, yeah, or just maybe, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's like I just, you like to follow through on something and see it through to either its natural conclusion or reverse engineer it back and see where the problem originated from. And, there's always something you can do then to either improve on it or to take it to the next step then again.
You're always looking to learn. Then just talk to me, just a couple of interesting, there's loads of little bits that you've done around the yard that I've registered.
Right.
Autumn calves on sand down there, which I think is really interesting.
Okay.
You said because of their diet, probably it works well, but it works extremely well. Just talk to me about some of the stuff you're doing with crops and feeding cows as well. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Your minimal inputs, chemical inputs now in your system, aren't you?
Yeah, as if I don't need to use them, I won't use them. So I suppose one of the other things, I joined an organisation in Ireland called BASE. They're biological farming, and I've learned a lot on there as well. And even small things like, it's fine to say you're going to reduce fungicides, but what the normal thing is, the fungicides are there for a reason, because they're preventing the animal or the plant from getting a disease, the same way as you're using a vaccine to prevent an animal from getting disease. But if you can take it back a couple of steps further, there's things you can do early on in time to prevent that from becoming a problem. So I suppose one of the interesting things in my spring barley, which would be for whole crop, is there's actually 7 varieties of barley in that mix. So individual varieties have different tolerances to funguses. So if you mix the 5 different varieties of barley in the one plant or in the one field, this plant might get the fungus, but the 5 around it won't get it, because they're a different variety and they're a different family. So simple little thing like that can make a huge difference. The other thing, again, the same with animals. One of the biggest problems with any disease or precursors of disease is stress.
Yeah.
So
massive.
In the barley scenario, one of the biggest reasons that a plant will get disease like that is stress, and the stress actually comes from overloading it with nitrogen. So if you put out less nitrogen, the plant has less stress, so it's less likely to get a fungicide or a fungus anyway. So little things like that can make a big impact on the crops, and as I say, you translate the same thing to the animals in as well.
So you're an early adopter, right? You've technology here, you've robots milking the cows. But what we're talking about there is sort of wisdom around crops and plants and maybe animals that I have found through maybe the last 3 or 4 years of my career, that I'm moving back to sort of simple wisdoms, maybe.
Yeah,
would I be wrong?
The classic saying is, well, common sense is not very common. And being able to take a step back from a problem, as I say, and either reverse engineer it or improve on it, pays a huge dividend that way. In there's always a workaround for something like, and it doesn't always have to be the complicated solution or scenario. Sometimes the simpler one that was there historically that
could be the answer.
Is the answer. Yeah.
And why do we not see that sometimes? Because sometimes maybe it's age, maybe it's experience, maybe you ask yourself the question. But sometimes I've gone in through my career and I've gone and look at calves and I talk about really simple stuff now, space, whatever.
Yeah.
Why do we miss those things sometimes, Johnny? It's a hard question, maybe. Philosophical question.
Yeah, but I suppose like everybody asks for advice when you're doing, be it a building or a calves or growing crops, and where you're getting that advice from then can lead you the wrong ways, which is the right way.
Okay.
And I suppose the problem is there's a clearly defined path at the minute of what's the perceived right way, and everybody should follow that, to the point in that the other options have been forgotten about, and people have actually lost the knowledge of those type of things. And if you were, for example, if somebody was going organic, you almost have to relearn all those sort of scenarios again. And that's maybe where the regenerative agriculture is kind of coming in, because it's a halfway between organic and what's the normal now. So
I would be kind of, with some of the stuff I talk about, be leaning towards the regenerative idea. I'm not fully regenerative, right? I don't know enough about it. But I would get the impression
it's just a word for encompassing a
big broad spectrum.
And a sort of a different theory to mainstream agriculture.
And are you sort of finding yourself going, your new furrow, is it maybe in that space? or
Yeah,
certainly looking at.
I don't know if I typecast it as regenerative, but yeah, it's like there is a second, third, and fourth, and fifth option always.
Yeah.
And there's no harm in examining them. Now, 3 of them might be the wrong, and 1 might be the right one. But that's part of the fun of farming as well. Because if it's not interesting, there's that takes a lot of the the monotony out of it as well. Having something interesting that you can learn about, or a new theory or something that you can develop yourself as well.
I found a very interesting hour, and if anyone comes across you or you have open days, I would suggest come down here, because you challenge the thinking, and again, you're doing some really good stuff. But you said, like to me, and we were sitting down at the computer, look at technology. Open to, you failed as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're open to failure as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't learn. You have to fail to learn as well.
Yeah.
You can go back to the classic WD-40. It's WD-40 because he got it wrong 39 times.
Right.
And there's no harm in that too. So.
Well, Johnny, I have to say, look, I know you for a while. I've really enjoyed the visit.
No
I think you're doing fantastic things. I know I love outside the box thinkers and people who are well able to plough their own furrow, and you certainly tick that box. So continued success here to the farm, and look, it'd be great to be back in a few years again to see where you're at.
No problem at all. Yeah, you're always welcome to call.
Super.